Good evening, everyone. It is a few seconds after 7 p.m. Time to call the Monday, March 18th, 2024 Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission meeting to order. If staff could please confirm the presence of a quorum.
Yep, Mr. Bunkerfist, Mr. Horke,
Here.
Mr. Khan,
Here.
Dr. Keene, Mr. Maui,
Here.
Mr. McCarty,
Here.
Mr. Mooney,
Here.
Mr. Neal,
Present.
and Mr. Woodard. Okay, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. No, Dr. Keene was not planning on being here. I was not sure about Chris Woodard. So hopefully he'll show up.
I share that.
There are no changes to the agenda that I'm aware of, which moves us on to approval of our March 4th, 2024 meeting minutes. Is there a motion regarding acceptance of these minutes into our records?
So moved.
We have a motion by Andre Maui, and was that seconded by Billy Bunkerfist? We are all present, so we can do this on a voice vote. Everybody in favor of accepting these minutes into the record, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed or abstaining? Meetings are approved and in the record. Staff would please review the rules of procedure for tonight's meeting.
Yeah, so for this evening, this is a workshop meeting, so just a few things to cover. The department will introduce the petition stating when the item was last before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission and the petitioner will then discuss changes made to the ordinance using the issue list as a guide for the discussion and the petitioner's presentation and overview. Once the discussion is finished, the department will summarize the final changes that are expected to be made prior to the petition returning for a recommendation before this body. So just a few general rules of conduct. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private conversation, then we ask that you please quietly exit the room.
That's not working.
That's also banned in the rules of procedure.
Please do not do that.
Sorry.
All set now? Nice. So please silence your devices at this time.
Timing is everything.
Perfect.
You can't make this up. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. We would like to remind those attending virtually to please mute your microphone when not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we have a consent agenda item tonight. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second. Rick McCarty, seconded by Neal. Staff will please call the roll.
Yep, Mr. Bunkerfist,
Yes.
Mr. Horke,
Yes.
Mr. Khan,
Yes.
Dr. Keene, Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Mooney,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
and Mr. Woodard.
Here.
Thank you.
I did not notice when you came in, but let the record show that Chris Woodard is now present. Moving on, we have two workshop items tonight, the first of which is Ravinia PUD, petition 2402-PUD-02. Staff can provide their intro, and then the petitioner update us on how the project is going, and then we'll open it up for workshop discussion.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass this off to John.
Okay,
Let's pass that over to him. Thank you.
bitten by the mouse. Feel free.
That's weird, I gave that one away because that one was good.
Yeah, so
We don't
just
need to discuss why.
Just the little thing, just the little things in it.
It's nice
Much
to
more
get
comfortable.
a little levity into the meetings.
we'll give just a brief overview here. Again, this is the Ravinia PUD. Ryan Collingwood, who's the planner on this project, couldn't make it tonight due to a prior obligation. So I just wanted to say a few words in Ryan's absence. Thank you, President, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. So the proposal in front of you this evening is the Ravinia Planned Unit Development District. This item has returned this evening for a workshop discussion with the Planning Commission. Just as a reminder, the subject for real estate is about 80 acres in size, generally located northeast of the intersection at Eagletown Road and west 166th Street. Since the petition was last in front of the APC at the public hearing on February 5th, The petitioner has made several modifications to the proposal. A more in-depth analysis of the changes has been provided in the staff report, but a few of the significant updates are as follows. The concept plan associated with the development has been reconfigured after discussions with neighbors and taking comments into account from ABC public hearing. Due to the reconfiguration of the site layout, some zoning regulations have also been slightly modified. Also, the petitioner has incorporated additional standards in response to various concerns regarding aesthetics throughout the development. As a reminder, this had its first reading at the January 29th City Council meeting. The APC public hearing was on February 5th, and tonight this item is up for a workshop discussion. So with that, we will turn it over to the petitioner. John Dalashewitz is here tonight with Nelson Frankenberger. He intends on making a presentation to update you all on the project. Thank you.
Good evening, and again, for the record, John Dalashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. We represent the petitioner, Platinum Properties Management Company, LLC. Paul Rio with Platinum Properties, Keith Lash with Lennar Homes, Tim Walter with Platinum Properties as well. So if there are questions, we might hand off to others. I wanted to provide you a brief overview of the adjustments that have been made to the plan. And then we have provided the Plan Commission with the issues response list, as well as an updated red line version of the ordinance. But with that, and not to be necessarily redundant to what Weston offered up, I wanted to walk through real briefly. If you are looking up at the screen, the neighborhood to our east here is Midland, and the areas that are developing under the Midland today are right up here, closer to the Midland Trail. The area directly to our north, this is part of Westgate that the streets are going in this year. This is another part of Westgate across Eagletown Road. There are approximately 4 to 5 individual parcels here along the west side of Eagletown. Owners whom which Paul and I met with again last Monday. And then on the south side of West 166th Street is an individual parcel here with a home on it, as well as ag and trees along the south edge. So this is an exhibit you saw at your last meeting, just provides a little bit additional context to what's surrounding it. The idea is that this area is in the area identified under the comprehensive plan as new suburban, where transitions are important, and we'll walk through those items momentarily. The old plan on the left, the revised and updated plan on the right. The old plan, I'll use the pointer here. The old plan included lots along the north here, which are identical to the lot configuration to our north within Westgate. You'll also see in the ordinance there were standards with regard to this road that made them identical to the standards here, which are older standards that will be applied only to that space to make those lots identical. There's connections here made to Midland here, and a connection here in stub streets that are planned within Midland. Connection to the site from 166th Street to our south. Move that down just one. And then here along Eagletown Road, the prior plan was to have all the lots here along Eagletown back up to the roadway with a buffer between them and Eagletown. This is the revised plan, and the revised plan extended those larger lots, what's identified as the estate area, to wrap. I'm gonna go ahead and stand up, it's easier to do this. To wrap, these were the prior design lots. That frontage place turns and connects it back with our entrance. The entrance shifted to the south just a little bit. 7 additional or 8 additional estate lots were added here. The estate lots were enlarged by just a little bit from 17 to 19,000 square foot as a minimum lot size. And then the lots along in area 2, this was area 2 over here, area 2 lots next to Midland were made to be identical to the standards applicable to those lots within Midland. They're 60-foot wide lots. In order to accomplish the revision of this here, where there would be larger lots that face the street or the frontage road, the lots that you see in yellow here were modified from 60 to 52 feet. It's still the same product. It's just a little bit narrower lots, which allowed us to, even though I think we lost half a dozen lots or so, it wasn't as big a loss on the site as if it would have been if those standards were applied that were the same as previously for area 2. A little bit of change here to the horseshoe, if you will, on the north side of the entrance. So what you have in place now is lots here that match the lots in Westgate here, lots along our edge that match the lots within Westgate, estate lots along our south perimeter, estate lots along our west perimeter, and lots here that match the lots within Westgate on the other side of the street. when we refiled with staff a week ago Friday, we had a plan along this edge that included combined driveways out onto Eagletown Road. And when we met with the residents on Monday and showed them, here's option, that option that we had refiled versus this option, which includes the frontage road. I think it was unanimous in the neighbors that met with us, there were 4 different families and one couldn't attend that night, that the preference was, one, that houses would face them rather than the backs of houses, regardless of the design. The other was the preference to have the frontage drive rather than individual driveways cutting into the street. And I think in general, Public Works that would be their preference as well, and that's why we had the frontage place to begin with along the south edge to avoid individual driveway cuts with lots. And so that revision was made. There was also a request to see some modifications to our amenities, and we added a couple benches and stopping areas along the trail, along the pond. And if you're familiar with the site, which I'm assuming most people aren't, there's a small culvert that crosses over the legal drain, I'll call it legal drain, the creek at that location, and our proposal is to leave that in place. It's not gonna have paths attached to it, but it's a place where people will find, and then you can see that's a place where it's reasonable to cross. It's designed for trucks, farm equipment to cross today. There's one caveat: if the Public Works or Surveyor's Office mandates that we remove it to somehow accomplish a clearing of the legal drain in accordance with their requirements, which is typically no trees, no structures, no nothing within so many feet. If we can get around that and have it stay, it would stay. If we can't, then it would be required to be removed. So there's a caveat in the ordinance to that effect. There were some questions about what happens at our entrances in terms of right-of-way improvements. That's addressed within the response to public comments, or rather the issue list that was made up from council, plan commission, and public, and that's identified in there. And then in addition to that, in particular along the Eagletown frontage, because 166th Street was rebuilt within the last, I think, 24 months. They milled it all down, put resurface down. We would make improvements along Eagletown under a road impact fee agreement with Public Works and the city of Westfield to spend our road impact fee dollars, which has been conveyed to us, which would be a benefit and a preference on part of at least a few of the council members, to see us invest those resources along Eagletown Road and make those improvements along that frontage. With that, I think I've covered all the bigger modifications we made. There's a couple smaller ones. Individuals asked for garage doors not to match, that we make 50% of those, no more than 50% one design. So we've agreed to make accommodations with regard to garage door design. And then some other tweaks in the ordinance that if you have questions about after you've looked at it, we can dialogue about those things. But these are the fundamental changes that have occurred to the plan since the public hearing last month.
The only thing I'd add, John, is this section up here that is connected to an existing section of Westgate. These will be incorporated into the Westgate HOA. So this group of homes will actually be a part of Westgate and go to their amenity center and so forth. We'd had some requests that this amenity center be enlarged for the ability to have meetings within the building itself. And we didn't feel like there's enough homeowners in here to necessitate building a larger clubhouse that holds public meetings. Now, you'll see later with Winterberg that we take the other tack, which is we have 400 lots, and that's enough to justify saying, let's be able to have our HOA meetings right here on the property. But thought you wanna know that kind of goes with the Westgate property, and that's why we didn't take one of those suggestions about enlarging our amenity center into account. Yeah, about the only other thing.
Something I have asked about on several occasions. That'll eliminate a lot of confusion down the line.
Yep.
All right, if that is everything that you want to share with us, we'll open the floor to commissioner comments to workshop through our comments here. Anybody have thoughts and concerns they'd like to bring up, or questions for staff or the petitioner?
Yeah. Remind me, the ones on the east side in orange, what's the distinction that those are colored separately? What makes those, is it?
They're 60 feet wide at a minimum, 6,200 square feet, where the ones internal are Or rather, there's 52s on the inside, the
60s
inside,
on the edge.
yeah, 60s on the edge are 7,500 square feet approximately.
And really, that was to match these with these and these with
Yeah,
those.
so those stayed
That's sort of-
60 like they all were before.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
But the homes that are anticipated to be on either of them are the same as they were. And the reduction in lot width is not an issue for the building out.
Yeah, it would just be a change of a 2 foot in the side yard. And I apologize, I failed to mention one other thing that we included within our submittal. We were asked to address short-term rentals, and this isn't new ground. We had previously been asked with another subdivision to address that in a subdivision that was adjacent to Grant Park, and we've done that. They asked for that similar language to be applied here, and we've agreed to do that. So that's the only thing that you'll see in the commitment.
Meaning that agreement would not allow for short-term rentals, is that what it is, or rentals at all?
Short-term,
Short-term, okay, so like no Airbnb.
yeah, it couldn't be, right. That's,
Permanently, or is there like a stipulation of amount of time someone could own a home, or does it say that you can never?
you can't do it without coming back to the council and asking to do it. They wanted it, staff had previously requested that this be in the form of a commitment rather than in the ordinance itself. And the commitment obligates the CCRs to be, including this, so that it's the HOA that is the enforcement authority rather than the city, but the city can still come back, they would come back, if there was an issue, they would come back and introduce the HOA to the offender if there was one.
If you haven't read it, there is an exhibit on our agenda that includes that document.
Yeah, I just
Is
forgot
that
to
from
mention.
Lancaster?
It is.
Yeah. So we've done the same thing before.
Other commissioner questions or
Just
comments?
clarity, there was a comment about wood fencing on some of the outer lots. You still allow for like wrought iron or?
Yep.
Okay.
It was just they wanted to avoid the, typically, well, not typically, sometimes you see with wood fences, people pick 3 or 4 different designs and then it becomes very segmented along that frontage, and aesthetically it's different than if we just prohibited. So everything I think we put in 150 feet was prohibited.
Thank you.
And how many homes total in this?
The total revised number of homes is 187. The change came in the biggest area, there was an increase in area C lots where from by 8 or 9, and the yellow area was reduced by 11.
How many, can you tell me about the amenities? For that?
Yeah, I've got another
Sure,
exhibit
there's a
here.
blow up.
There it is, right here, there's the blow up.
We've used this same general style, in this pavilion out by the pool. The pavilion's kind of a shade covered area. What you find in most of these amenity areas is people, they don't get in the pool, but they love to have a big pool deck. So, you know, let the kids get in the pool, everybody hangs out under these in the shade, drinks their beer, and, so we've got this design. It was brought up at one of the previous, I think at the previous plan commission meeting, that we showed the same thing in Winterberg and here. That's just because it's our typical look. We can always change the architecture and dress them up a little bit differently. But pickleball, the pool with a kid's pool, a kiddie pool, larger pool, large deck with a pavilion for shade. And then this pool house has got the bathrooms and the mechanicals.
Okay. And you said there's a pickleball court as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this design actually, with the smaller number of homes in here, 190, we've got some on-street parking around it. We didn't put a big parking lot in. Most people will walk. It's very centrally located and easy to get to, but for the people who do drive over, you know, there's gonna be enough parking around here for, the cars that would be from the neighborhood. Got, playground, pool, pickleball, no basketball or tennis, not enough room here for that.
Is the pickleball court lit by chance?
No.
No.
We generally don't light anything at the amenities.
Okay.
Attractive nuisance.
Only question for pavilion, and this will be the same, excuse me, that goes for Winterberg. On that example, the fence goes through it.
Uh-huh.
Is that typical, or could you just have all the pavilion enclosed into the pool area?
Yeah, what happens is outside of that fence is the playground. So it kind of splits. Some parents hang under there for the playground shade, some will hang in the pool area, so we've done it both ways.
Okay.
Depending on needs, we can, it doesn't come across the frontage of this, but it allows that pavilion to shade both activities.
Do you get more year-round use out of it that way?
Not
Yeah.
not
I was
really,
just
I
curious.
mean,
Yeah.
it's a good spot to hang out when your kids are on the playground. In the neighborhood I live in Legacy, we have one, this is exactly the same one we have
Oh, okay.
there. And, but yeah, once it's snowing and stuff, there's no one out there.
Yeah. That's fair.
It does extend to fall and spring though, because the pool is only open in, from basically June, July and August.
Yeah.
Is there any opinion from staff regarding the number of parking spaces? It was actually lined on the original one, but there's no little tick marks on the revised one. I would think it looks like there's 10 spaces plus a handicap maybe. Is that gonna be sufficient, or would it be helpful to have parking on the other side of the street perhaps as well, or do we not have a concern about the parking count?
I know Public Works reviewed this at TAC. Typically at this level, we look for substantial site plan altering comments. If we were to go through the overall development plan review, that's something that could be requested at that time.
And when we talked, and we actually used this as an example, because the thought process was, with some of them, the parking lot is kind of not as attractive. And around the they'd rather have something that's like on-street parking. When people aren't parked there, you don't notice. And the vehicles that would be there would be in the daytime, and it just doesn't have to be something that's shielded or screened from surrounding areas.
And to your point that it's very conveniently centrally located, hopefully most folks actually will walk, but just wanted to.
And these streets also meet the ordinance, so parking on the street is allowed anyway based on the ordinance. So they could park on the opposite side of the street from where we have our bump outs, and it just makes it wider and easier for people to navigate.
And
Good point.
are we just out of space there the only reason I ask is, Mr. President, I could share, like, as a person on the HOA, Lakes of Westfield, we only have a pool house, a small pool house. And we're gonna hear this till the end of time of, we're paying these HOA fees and we only have a pool house, and it's a small one at that. And the pickleball court I think is awesome. I really wish that we had a basketball court. We see all the kids running around that parking lot in the pool area playing with balls, but nothing to shoot it in. And I think that those are really awesome things if it's possible, but if it's, we're completely out of space there, but I just think, for your HOA people to be really happy, they're gonna wanna see some, activity there. That's what we deal with in our neighborhood, all the time. That they're like, wow, we're paying all these HOA fees, and we're like, yes, but we're cutting this and we're trimming that, and the snow's being removed and all this stuff, And they're like, we don't care. That's, it's so annoying, but.
And you just have one, and we have like 14.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's true. So that would be my only thing, is if there was possible, even for one hoop or something, for those kids to be able to play with, if that's possible in that space, is, just but just seeing if there's any possibility there.
I'll look at that, and it may be possible that there's a space for a court, not in the amenity area.
Okay.
Like in some of the common areas by the paths, or in another park that might be park-like.
Yeah, that they would be able to.
If we did something, I'd have, this is a little high level, but, there's a lot of space up here. It's just to put a court in. If you've got all these red pathways, maybe there's a spot out here where, it doesn't take a lot.
Oh, gotcha.
In the world of, being outside, a basketball court doesn't take up a lot of space, so.
Right.
While this may be a little constraining, and I hate to say, let me lose $100,000 lot to to accommodate a basketball court, I've got room to look for places to do that. So if that's something that you think is important, we look at that.
Let me think through that. Yeah, but thank you.
Just on that topic, I would say if that's being considered, to instead swap the basketball court with the pickleball court and put 1 or 2 pickleball courts up north at the cul-de-sac, just for more less intensity use. Cause I can just, same thing, anticipate future complaints from homeowners of the people at the cul-de-sac of, oh, we got people playing basketball late at night. As opposed to pickleball being less intense.
Yeah, we're dealing with a lot of noise complaints with pickleball.
Yes, come to Village
Really
Farms.
do.
Ting, ting, ting.
I was talking to somebody the other day, they said they're coming out with new paddles.
Yeah.
They're getting enough, they're hearing enough of this that, that they may be able to do something with the paddles to make it less. I try to put 8 of them in one place, it sounds like a popcorn machine. It's coming.
man.
Yeah. Well, we can look at that, Victor.
I've not actually ever played pickleball or been around intense activity. So when I first heard about some of these controversies about how loud and obnoxious it can be hour after hour, I'm thinking, really?
Yeah.
Go out of your house
Apparently it is a
tonight when
real
you get
thing, and
home.
you can certainly speak to
Yeah,
that.
when you get home tonight, go out, you'll be able to hear it from your house.
Are they
Oh,
lighted?
it's cold, it's cold tonight.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah, it'll be
courts
out
are
tonight,
wet.
way later.
Yeah,
I will be tuned into it more so
Yeah.
in the future year.
Are they lighted, Chris?
yeah, we've got tennis courts there that, they just put up lights
Just redid
on
it, yeah.
Yeah,
Village Farms has had lit courts for decades,
yeah.
and over the winter, last fall and into this,
So we just
Spring.
added new lights.
the courts were rebuilt
Yeah.
and became one
That's
tennis
right.
court, 2 pickleball courts,
nice.
but their lights have been out there for a long time. They're supposed to go out at 11,
Yeah.
isn't it, or is it midnight? You can't use them all night, it actually is on demand, but
Yeah, I don't know, I
there's
just,
a timer.
I see, in our neighborhood anyways, there's just hoops everywhere, like at everybody's property, I mean, all the kids, it's Indiana, I mean, they're playing basketball
Play ball,
for sure. So yeah, it's something we really wish that we had, if, just considering who's gonna be in this neighborhood, I don't know, I mean, if it's a lot of families, a lot of kids, it would help, if not, then, I understand that. But yeah, see if it's possible.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns from commission members for petitioner or staff?
We talked last time, actually, it might have been me that brought it up, I don't even know about the meaningful transition east to west and what's outward facing, and I like what you've done with the estate lots on the west side there. I'm actually surprised that the preference was to have the frontage instead of the shared drives, because that feels more estate rural versus neighborhood development, but if that's the preference, I don't really care either
We
way.
proposed, common drives like theirs. 4 people showed up who lived right across, we met with the people right across the street. Second was, we'll back up to you with only ranches, so no 2 stories with better landscaping, which I thought they would like. I thought, if you get landscaping and you just have ranches, you don't have that imposing 2-story. So we had 4 drawings, and it was like, no, we definitely want that one. I mean, it was easy, really. They were just like, no, we want it the frontage place and see the front doors and so forth, so.
Yeah, I would applaud you guys for doing that too, that's awesome. I think that goes a long ways. So
It's
thank
certainly
you.
a better product.
You're welcome.
How's your note taking doing over here?
We're good.
We ready for,
Quick summary?
yeah,
Yeah.
shouldn't be too much to summarize, but let's make sure we have it all.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, at workshop meetings, at the conclusion of a discussion, we will just briefly review what has been talked about. If you feel like your comments have not been captured in the overview, feel free to speak up and we'll make sure to make a note of that. But Kevin, if you'd like to
Well, yeah, really, I
give a
guess,
brief overview, feel free.
yeah,
Go for it.
I would really just outline the outstanding issues or things to consider modifying. Is really the consideration of adding a basketball court to the site somewhere. And Victor, I'll make sure I heard you right, possibility of moving the pickleball courts to one of the common areas and perhaps putting the basketball court in the amenity area, is that?
Yeah, just a consideration, cause I was just piggybacking off the
Sure.
conversation, cause having the basketball court being closer to the playground, you'll have more kids playing basketball as opposed to adults. So if you're putting pickleball at the end of the cul-de-sac up north, then that would be more of a daytime use as opposed to kids needing to go out of the way and playing basketball at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Okay. And as far as things to change or modify, that's really all I heard discussed tonight. Unless you guys picked up on something else, or unless I missed something, speak now.
Yeah, because the goal would be for the petitioner to incorporate these changes and then return back, I wanna say it's April 1st. So the petitioner in this scenario would incorporate these changes, return back on April 1st, and this body would forward a recommendation to city council. So that's where we're at in the process right now, just as a reminder, since we have some new members
We go back to a plan commission meeting,
for a recommendation.
Can we,
so we go from here to plan commission, then to council.
Correct.
Got it.
can we not, can we not act on this in these meetings? Out of curiosity, since it's not a
That
public,
would require suspension of well, I don't even know if it's that. Cause I think it's outlined in the UDO to process. So it's not just a plan commission rule, so no, it's not set up that way.
so we modified the UDO for the workshop meetings?
Hmm?
We modified the UDO to create this workshop process.
Yeah.
And how do you change that? Can we add that to the patch to where,
Well, this is a
You
pretty
could.
new thing, and we're still
It's not
Yeah,
in the year
kind of in
old.
its infancy here, and the whole intent was looking at the entirety of cradle to grave with the petitioner and us and all of the interactions we have to have. And the benefit of this kind of a meeting, we felt was important enough to work it in the way we have.
The reality is, I don't know that it saves anybody any time at the end of a process, because
Regardless, it'll still be at our next council meeting.
yeah, if it were to get voted on tonight, I don't think there's enough time to get it on
The
the
25th.
council meeting next week. So
Plus,
it
yes, we have-
still is going to the April 8th or whatever
Yeah.
council meeting.
I wanna ask one more question then. Is it gonna be normal for it to go APC, workshop, APC? Because it seems to me the frequency should be this and then the APC. To where we actually talk about it and go through it, instead of or is that not the?
But we gotta get all the
You gotta
You gotta have a public hearing, so
comment
unless you wanted this to be the
Public
public
hearing.
hearing.
The idea is that we have the public hearing, hear all of the public comments.
Sorry.
The petitioner makes a recommended changes or whatever.
Okay.
And then this meeting, we're reviewing the update to see if they adequately addressed the public comments.
Plus, I guess on this one, we have outstanding items we might want them to change, so I don't know that I would wanna vote tonight on it, this particular one anyway, because they may change some things, and if we vote on it, I guess that kinda sets it in place for recommendation, correct? So I can see your point for other things where we may not have items for them, the petitioner, to change, but in this sense, we kind of made a couple asks of them,
Well,
right?
yeah, so ideally in that scenario, we're waiving the workshop altogether at the public
Right.
hearing meeting and going straight to either making a recommendation, or if there's really just a handful of changes, going to the next plan commission meeting and bypassing the workshop.
So you're saying there's occasions where we could come to the plan commission, commit to some changes and not be sent to
Yeah,
a
but it has
workshop?
to be like
Slam dunk.
two,
to build
like
utopia.
it can't be a bunch of changes.
Have a bunch of the state laws.
Okay.
The cleaner the motions that we are able to make, the better for everyone, because if we have to move to approve, subject to this, that, and the other, we have to be really
miss
comfortable
one,
that all of that is so predictable that it's not gonna show up at council with a recommendation like that, and we go, huh? That's not what I thought they were gonna bring. We need to keep the process moving certainly, but we also need to make sure that we are making a motion based on something that we are really knowledgeable about and comfortable that it is ready for whatever the recommendation is that we're gonna send to council. And I don't see that we're far from that tonight, but we're not there.
Let me put it this way, if this were a public hearing meeting and the only thing that came out of the public hearing was let's add a basketball court, I would recommend we waive the workshop
Yeah,
and, right?
right. I'd say I'll do the basketball court.
Yeah.
They say, good, you don't have to go to workshop.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I get it. That's, just trying to understand the new process.
Yeah, so it's a fair question.
So, we've heard the recap, which means we are ready to move on. to workshop item number 2,
No, I don't.
Winterberg
Thanks for all my
PUD.
comments, appreciate it.
Commission 2402-PUD-04.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you. Versus when it comes back.
And then John, are you able to locate your presentation on there? Or do you want me to,
Yeah, if you wanna.
I can walk up and pull it up real quick. Just one moment here. You get into the mouse.
That'll give me time to.
That was a touch screen.
My presentation.
You need a mirror or something? You wanna get some
Look at me, I had to call the IT guy from Tri-Phase today, so I pushed the wrong button on my remote last night.
Oh, no, that was it, huh?
That was it. I was like, my wife said, what'd you push? I'm like, I thought I pushed volume, but I think I pushed this other button. And I'm like, now I can't get to come back. I couldn't get the, kept showing up saying, no internet, no internet. I'm like, phone has it, everything has it. We'll watch that movie tomorrow, honey.
Spring bug.
Okay, when you're ready. So, yeah, just wanted to give a brief introduction. Again, this is the Winterberg PUD item. So thank you, President, members of the Plan Commission. For the record, Weston Rogers with the Community Development Department. The proposal before you this evening is the Winterberg Planned Unit Development District. This item has returned this evening for a workshop discussion. The subject real estate is just at 206 acres in size and is generally located southwest of the intersection at 193rd Street and Casey Road. Since the petition was last in front of the APC on February 5th, the petitioner has made refinements and modifications to the proposal. The review of those changes can be found in the staff report and the forthcoming petitioner presentation, which you will see here in 1 minute. As a recap, the petition held its council first reading at the January 29th meeting. This petition received a public hearing at the February 5th APC meeting, and tonight the item is slated for a workshop discussion. With that, John Dalashewitz, Nelson and Frankberger is here to make a presentation. Following that, we can begin our discussion. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you again, John Dabashewitz with Nelson and Frankenberger. Same petitioner as the last item, Platinum Properties Management Company LLC, Tim Walter and Paul Rio with us. Weston's done a great job in describing kind of where it's at, but I mean, if you've been out to that area, you know Casey Road tees into the entrance into Atwater there on the north. Emery Trace to our east here, that's completed out. This area of Lancaster has probably this area here left to develop in lots, maybe another 50 to 70 lots in that subdivision there. New Haven, I think there's some permits issued in there already, maybe some foundations being set in the ground, but nothing vertical, I don't think yet. Is it? Oh, okay. It's been a couple months since I've been out there. And then William Trace to our south, that neighborhood's completed. Shelton Cove to our south, that neighborhood's completed. There are a few more items that we were asked to consider regarding this request than in the prior one. Shift here to this plan. We put this together earlier today to help inform the discussion here about what one thing next to another. So I'll get up and walk through this and then show you the amenity plan. There's two sections within the proposed subdivision. There's an area, what's called Area A and Area B lots. Area A lots are a little bit smaller. The lots in Shelton, or here in Atwater, and then are a little bit smaller lots, and the area here is a little bit larger. They're only about 1,500 square feet and 10 feet in width, different. But the area along the west perimeter, we were asked to establish a, I don't wanna call it a hard line, but again, like we did with the other one, what happens next in the next door area, and everybody could say, well, the transition occurs there, then there, then there. So again, we made the lots 10 feet wider along here, 80s and 70s rather than 60s and 70s respectively along that western perimeter. If those areas to the were to develop in the future, which are ag ground today, they would connect into this subdivision at this location and at the location of the frontage drive along 193rd to our north. Those are the two connections. They'd also have access at other points if they have frontage on, whether that's Eagletown Road to our west or 193rd along our north perimeter as well. There's been a lot of discussion about what happens in this common area to our south, and you'll see language that we added to the ordinance. There's been interest mentioned Mr. McCarty, who's on the council, has mentioned that he and potentially other council members would like to see us consider dedicating the ground to the city for future park space, and how we might help them accommodate that is a discussion that we're gonna undertake. I haven't had time to coordinate, but the ordinance now allows us to do that. It's not a prerequisite or requirement, but we've agreed that if they asked, the developer would agree to dedicate that space to the public after infrastructure and pathway improvements were installed. Regarding pathway improvements, we met with Public Works, and this was the plan you previously saw that kind of had the trail just connect. And this was that leg of the trail that I talked about at our public hearing, which is the Little Eagle Creek Trail, which extends, it's kind of the third leg of the Midland to the south and the Monon to the west, or east rather. It's a diagonal space and it runs kind of through the area, all the way up through the developments here in Osborne Trails, where it connects further up with other neighborhoods that are under development next to the Monon, and then crosses our site and then comes through and meanders. I think it may go past Mr. McCarty's home. He lives in the development to the south, and behind him to the west is a flood zone, and that trail would extend through that space over to Eagletown Road and then points beyond. But the alternative that Public Works thought was the best alternative would be to take that and enhance the path that's on the south side of 186th Street and here, and then on the east side of Eagletown Road, and then it connects within Lancaster and across the school's property to get further north and east. This was the preferred alternative because it's in right of way. And one of the other things that was most important, I think, I don't want to say most, but one of the important things to Public Works is that we cross at an existing crossing of two streets, rather than have situations where there's multiple mid-block crossings along Casey Road. So that would have been a situation that occurred here. As we did discuss with the other development, and if you've been up there, Casey Road is not in great shape. But again, we would meet with Public Works, provide estimates of improvements along those frontages, and enter into an agreement with the city that said we're gonna spend our road impact fee dollars on enhancing X. And X is the frontage in front of our site. Now that there's gonna be dedicated right of way, there'll be room for road improvements. In particular, up here in this segment where we connect up with 193rd Street, that's probably the area that's in the most need of addressing some improvements in the future. And that would happen as sections of the development adjacent to those roadways were to take place. That's in addition to all the other improvements. Because there's not right away on 193rd Street, I think one of the public questions that was asked, what does that look like? And if you're familiar with some of the other developments where all the improvements are pulled onto one side of the street where you have to actually jog, it allows for that traffic to continue to go through, and you're pulling over all the improvements to the south side rather than having a situation with a passing blister. Because of all the additional right of way you're dedicating, it allows for that space to be able to accommodate that. One of the other biggest changes became in the amenity space, and I'll advance the slide to see if I can do that here. There we go. So this is the amended amenity plan. Paul mentioned we've added a meeting space that'll be part of this clubhouse facility. It's a minimum 20 by 20 square foot area, kitchenette. It'll have bathrooms, it's conditioned space. Along this segment here, we had, I think this was all pickleball, and we turned one of the pickleballs into half basketball court at another request. There's other areas throughout the plan, and you see lots of trails. That's one of the hallmarks of the development, is there's lots of walking paths that surround lots. And we indicated that we'll elect 6 locations where we'll have a stopping spot for people with a minimum of benches at those 6 locations. And then in addition to, I'm gonna jump back here for a minute. In addition to the amenity changes, you'll see a gathering space right here. And we added text to the ordinance that says what we're gonna do at that space. It's not a pick list, but it doesn't specify, here's exactly what it is, but it says it'll either be X, Y, or Z. And this is generally where it would go. At that location right there. What other else? The same language with regard to prohibiting short-term rentals is agreed to in this space. And if you give me a second, I want to make sure. There was a reduction in the number of lots by 5. There were similar comments here about garage door design that we amended. There was also comments about lot landscaping. We intended to make the lot landscaping requirements all the same in the Westfield UDO, there are two standards, a standard for lots, that are less than 8,000 square feet that have like one or two fewer trees and one or two fewer shrubs, and then lots that are over 8,000 get an extra tree and a couple shrubs. We just agreed to go with the UDO, and where there's lots that are 8,000, they get landscaping that's over 8,000 square feet in lot area. Some of the language was tightened up with regard to buffers and landscaping, and the open space language that I talked about in agreement with what the city would potentially do in far as a park space. We anticipate that language or discussion to unfold over the next several weeks. It's not necessarily a zoning matter. It's a community matter that the council will take up and determine, do they want to do that? It's just that we wrote into the ordinance that an obligation on our part, or I say our, but the developer's part, if the city decides we're moving in that direction, Paul's agreed to move in that direction. If it's common area, it's common area, and if the city decides to move in the direction of future park space, it's future park space. That is open to the city's will. Fishing pier was added as a 12 by 12 fishing pier. We'd pick one of the lakes to put that in, the gathering area that I talked about, and the little Eagle Creek Trail. The last item is annexation. The Plan Commission will see with other petitions that are adjacent to the city limits. The city always requires, I don't say requires, but wants to make sure that the property is annexed before development occurs. The city of Westfield has park impact fees. The city of Westfield has road impact fees, and if development were to occur outside the city limits, I believe those two standards aren't in place. So we've guaranteed that it'll be annexed before we issue permits so that the city collects those two revenue streams that are designed to offset the costs associated with the development of the area. So with that, I'll conclude. I think we covered everything. But of course, if there's additional questions that the Plan Commission has, we'll review those as we move forward.
Let me just add a little color at the end, John. The reason this park discussion is taking place is there's a residence right here that sits on about 2 or 3 acres. But the balance of this property that's in gray, that's not part of our plan, we actually purchased the other side of the creek from this family. Can you scroll back up to that aerial photo? The reason it's important is it makes the park, there's a big flood zone that comes through here and makes a lot of this ground undevelopable for housing. But the White family still owns this portion. And the thinking was there might be a chance that with park impact fee credits, that could be purchased and that would make that park area more substantial. I mean, we would be talking about 15, it may be a 30-acre park. So floodways are a big problem for building buildings, but most of the floodways we run into don't flood very often. They're just part of the national maps, and it's not as if this area gets inundated in water. I've never seen it that way. Victor, you've lived out here for your whole life. I don't know how often it's flooded, but so the thought was maybe when we say we're okay dedicating our southern portion of the park, it was because maybe that can become a really big community asset rather than just us saying you can have our floodway. It's not like that. So, and if you go back to the plan, the only thing I would point out, unlike the other plan, we didn't really change the land plan. The public didn't have any comments. We had some drainage comments up here. There's a lot of water and a lot of drainage we're picking up from off-site that we gather in our lakes and take through. This plan actually is about 70% of these lots don't back up back to back on other people. You've got ponds, common areas, and a lot of what we consider to be good options for buyers because they're not all right back to each other. So the only comment that came from the Plan Commission, I think, was Mr. Maui, if you're gonna transition, let's make these lots a little bigger, so the next time you come in, you don't say we're just matching this. So that's why the asterisk lots are bigger than the balance of the lots. That's the logic there.
What's the price point on the homes?
I don't think we'll see anything in here under 400. Possible we're 375 to 550. But 2 product lines, there'll be 1 product line up here and a different one, 2 different builders, 2 different products.
2 different builders and products, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a custom, there's no custom builds here. It's
No.
only 2.
No, these would be 60 footers would be Pulte, and right now the 70 footers would be Beazer. And so they would each have their own different product lines. We'd probably, just to finish up, have a model court here, come in here, and then there'd be models, we'd probably take a few of these larger lots and you'd have Pulte models here and Beazer models there and split into two. And there's 400 lots, 390 or something, but what's your park impact fee right now? 2,500? You know, it's $1 million a park fee here.
Yeah.
So something cool could be done.
It's per lot though, so just keep that in mind. I know there's a question that was brought up at the public hearing about less lots versus more lots and the burden on infrastructure and so on and so forth. So that is one consideration that, you know, in the issue list, we worked with the petitioner to try and answer that, to provide you all a response that, you know, just keep that in mind, that, you know, those fees are captured per lot. So, just, and collectively with infrastructure too, you know, providing an efficient layout with, you know, streets that are double loaded and, you know, efficient, that means also provides efficiencies for maintenance, you know, as the community ages and so on and so forth. So just want to add that in there on that topic of impact fees.
Appreciate it. That's all I have.
I'm forgetting which documents I read where, and I didn't bring my laptop to look it up. Did I see that somebody requested a sunset clause for this? Was that on this one?
I don't recall.
Was it on the other one? I thought in the comments in the last week I read about a sunset clause.
I believe there was a discussion regarding
there was a discussion.
sunset clauses, but I don't know that we actually,
I don't think it was in one, I think we discussed it.
Is that where it was?
I think we have it, I think there's a provision in here that's already in the ordinance today, and I'm gonna find it here, cause it's important.
Well, I have a hard time understanding how we can do that, and that's why I was checking to see if that's actually being imposed or not.
Well, here's what it here's what the language is out of, and this is common. Failure to obtain construction plan approval for the real estate by January 1, 2029, unless otherwise extended by the director, shall automatically void this ordinance. That means we can't get it zoned today, sit for 12 years and come back and then say, we're ready now. We have to obtain that first set of construction plan approvals by January 1, 2029. It can ride out after that, but we can't get zoning and just sit into perpetuity. There isn't it doesn't say, oh, you didn't pull all your permits by X date, now you're not entitled to any more of your building permits, and because no one would buy that deal. I mean, I have to start by this period.
That may be what I was thinking then. Thank you.
that's really more of a council-driven thing in the past. It wasn't an APC-driven. But just, it was something from the previous council.
And just for my own education, the last time at the city hall, when that lady spoke about the lighting and the new proposed lighting, that it goes for less light pollution, is that what all developments are doing moving forward? Is that what I understood?
Are you referring to Dr. Kelleher's comments?
I believe so.
Former APC member?
I believe so.
That might not have been on this item, but I know that the city has specifications on street lighting that are night sky friendly, as well as the only other lighting we're proposing are the dusk to dawn lights on the dwellings.
I'm curious, why would you put that in there?
The dusk to dawn?
No, the date, like, I wouldn't put that in there. If I
Me
were
either.
you. Yeah, I wouldn't put that in there.
It's become common, only in that the city wants to make sure that, in the past, there were other developments, then the market took a tank and they were resurrected, 8 to 12 years later, and the standards had changed, construction standards had changed over time, and there wasn't a convenient way to back out of all that.
It's there because of Westgate.
Yeah.
Because it
Ackerson
was zoned
Farms
in
and
2000.
Westgate both were
Yeah.
decades ago.
And Ackerson Farms, they were zoned in 2003, never came out of the ground, recession came, and it brought back in 2018 and said, here we go, and the council went, we never approved this. And I said, well, it was approved 15 years ago.
I
And so it
appreciate
created a little bit of angst. I mean, it doesn't bother me because we're active and we're local and we don't worry about that. We buy land to develop it, not hold it for years, but just as an editorial, it would be a value issue for someone who dug into this stuff and said, so you're telling me that land could revert back to zoning in 5 years? That would be a problem for maybe a national builder or an investment group. who did their due diligence, so, just as an editorial. I mean,
Yeah,
it doesn't,
and
it's not
that's-
gonna stop me, but,
And that's why I have concern as to whether that's even right to be able to do it.
yeah. I
But
understand.
the lighting conversation that I think Jenny was bringing up was shielding versus cutoff.
Yeah,
And I don't remember what's in the,
fully shielded stuff.
That was actually a conversation about changing the UDO patch, cause there was something in the patch, right, that,
Yeah.
Yes,
Weston?
about
Was that-
lighting.
yes.
Yeah, so currently the UDO requires fully shielded lighting. There was a request at the previous public hearing to refine that a bit to be fully shielded, full cutoff.
Do you guys agree with that?
Full cutoff. Yeah.
Like, do we, like, how's that even happen? Like, then, do we do anything about that? Like, do you guys
Like
just
for it or
decide to
against
add
it?
it to your UDO patch?
It would go through, it would, yeah, I mean, ultimately it would come before this group if that's something that we wanted
It
to
comes back to us,
modify.
but I guess the question is,
Do
are
we- do
you
we-
likely to make that revision if that language is in fact more industry standard today? And that's what we'll see when it comes back. or
Sure,
not.
I mean, to be fair, I guess I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it since.
You could hire a consultant named Tim, who had to go to McCordsville Plan Commission 3 straight months to get our streetlights approved. What's that thing called, that, the count,
Bug rating,
the bug rating, yeah.
brightness, uplight, and glare. It's a
Oh,
lighting
sounds like
standard.
1%.
I mean, I'll say, that we have some pretty strict standards today.
Yeah.
This would simply be an enhancement to
Okay.
those standards.
The
It
full
wouldn't be
the
an.
full cutoff
and-
is the standard so that there's no uplight.
Yeah.
And for.
Zero, and it is industry standard anymore. LED lights are almost always full cutoff. Some of them are semi cutoff, which would mean it might have a slight angle up, but a full cutoff light would mean all the light is going straight down.
Yeah.
And for the benefit of the discussion, if the city elects to modify its standards with regard to that lighting, it would apply to this development, because our development and the ordinance, falls under the provisions of the city's infrastructure standards. So if they change that, the first section or the second section, or whenever it was, would be required to meet those standards.
Well, yeah, and I'm a fan of, honestly, the lighting to be cut off, just from, coming from Indianapolis, you don't see any stars. You know, you're over here and you can see stars, and I love it, like, I love it, I love being able to show my kids, here's where this star is, and all that, you know, and you lose that if everything, you know, doesn't have some of these
You just get an
protections
app
in
on your
place.
phone, you're good.
Yeah, that's what we gotta do now, but.
Just so I can jump in with some further clarity, because really that conversation's been revolved around North Point Two development and commercial zoning. It's not something that necessarily impacts neighborhoods, because our construction standards already handles that, and they're more than sufficient. Really what was brought up is comparing Duke Energy standards down in Florida. They have a webpage that lists everything, whereas the Indiana Duke, they don't have a webpage that shows it all. And this is all just in my head because we had a North Point 2 task group on Friday. But that's something we can handle in a UDO amendment later on, of just adding further clarity of these are the only type of models that we want since the technology's advanced, but.
We have time to call McCordsville, make sure.
Yeah.
we-
Oh, yeah.
We have all the right stuff to throw in.
It's funny, they wrote in their ordinance a bug rating, and their standard streetlight doesn't even meet that. So, they didn't do their homework.
organized.
Yeah, I am.
I have a quick one.
Please.
Appreciate the amenities, understand, you know, it's all driven by number of lots and everything. Can you walk me through the parking? So I tried to look through it. I just don't get it. So if you could help me, educate me.
You said parking
Yeah.
Amenities?
regarding the amenities, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Scroll up to that.
So I live in a neighborhood where we have a parking lot. I appreciate in the one before this in the presentation that you're like, hey, we're trying to do the street parking. So they're just trying to understand.
Yeah, so, after we look at this, I'm gonna zoom back out, because, when we zoom back out, you'll see that these two homes on this lot and this lot,
Yeah.
face north and south, and these face north and south.
Yep.
So these two internal streets here and here have no driveways, and there's no driveways, to the north or to the south, so I'm gonna zoom out so you can see it better. So that's where we're doing our on-street parking. Let's jump down here. So here's where you can see it. You can see these houses would face this way.
Okay.
these houses, there's nothing across the street, so all of the street, across the amenity area, there's, no driveways that would, complicate parking in the street. And then these two streets here have no, there's common area on all four sides, so that's where we're gonna provide on-street parking adjacent to the, amenity on either one or both sides of the street. I can't remember which.
It's allowed on both sides.
It's allowed on both sides, but one of the interest was not complicating it with situations where we're interrupting the ability for somebody else to park in front of their house.
And on
Again,
the
it's more of an aesthetic,
streets,
excuse me,
go ahead.
again, it's more of an aesthetic issue, not having a 8 to 10 parking lot next to whomever's house gets to be the one that benefits from people parking there.
The other thing, I always keep in mind when we have to make these presentations of, 200 acres on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, is this length right here is longer than a football field. On both sides for
Yeah.
parking, so it doesn't look like much there, like, what do you get, 4 cars? No, you get like 40.
You have an east-west trail that comes in.
Yeah.
So you need to make certain that there's some stripes and signs, so the parking in that football field length
Yeah.
allows for the trail passage.
Is that a regular width road though? Is that a standard?
It is.
Yeah, it's a standard road.
No, those are gonna be awesome amenities. We're gonna be jealous as hell.
Well, you can move.
Yeah.
We'll make you a deal.
They will be selling those
We're always selling.
To those points though, I was gonna bring up, with it being a regular size street, one, good point with, the trail going through the amenities of, I'm sure that'll be a recommendation in the future by, Public Works of maybe having striping for a pedestrian crossing there with, the streets. But otherwise, to, Ryan's point, I was going to actually make the suggestion of, having cut in parking on the right side, just to have somewhat of designated parking to make it wider. But otherwise, I see the point of there will be plenty of parking on the side. I'm just trying to look at it from.
I think what you're talking about is that round out the radius here, cut it in,
Yeah,
and then maybe here's another bump out again where the trail crosses to
Limit it to one side to
identify that.
accommodate.
yeah, to help
So that
identify
people aren't
more.
blocking the trail in the park,
Yeah,
and then it bumps back out, and then it just throttles back down here at the intersection.
We can do a new exhibit and maybe line it and show, be more clear about what we've got available to park there.
yeah, good deal.
It's quite a bit, but I know
Yeah.
what you're looking for.
And while we're talking, I'll jump in for clarification for everyone. I looked it up because we just approved increasing our park impact fees last year. Currently for 23-24, it's 3.4 thousand, and then all the way up till 2028, it's validated. In 2028, it'll be $3,698.67. So that's that incremental increase there, and then for what else was I gonna mention? Oh, I think really just one thing or two things. The first thing being the park. That's really an outside conversation from APC. I appreciate you putting it in the language of the city having the option. So we'll see how those discussions further go in that regard. But really, just on the property, there is a grove of trees. If you scroll up to the rendering before this one, yeah,
Which one?
on the left side,
Up there?
right,
Here?
yeah, right there. So I guess really just in all the task group meetings I've been having with North Point 2, trees are on top of my mind. I appreciate seeing in the renderings overall where you have the lines of trees to try and preserve as many of those as possible, because I'm sure homeowners that if their backyards abut to those or whatever it is, would want to have long mature trees as opposed to putting new ones in. So the same philosophy with the grove of trees on the left side. I know that in the new rendition, you have some of the now larger lots, which would probably fall under Beazer, really taking out the trees and putting them there. But I just see that as something that would be an additional amenity for the community or for this neighborhood to add character of you have this huge grove of trees that would be beneficial to keep as opposed to tearing them down just to add homes. So that's just my thoughts with
Well,
that.
let me answer that. We saved that grove of trees in the first rendering. See this drain that comes through here? We're picking up like 200 acres of off-site drainage that comes right through there that has to be cleared in order to
Gotcha.
pick up, most of the time, trees that are left in Indiana are wetlands. Because the farmer just decided, I'm not clearing the rest of this because it's not worth it. So version one, we saved them, and then when we got to engineering, it was like, you really gotta pick up, can't see it, it's covered here, but you really gotta pick up what we're getting from the other property.
You can see it kind of here, see that draw?
One of the things we're always asked at, at all the public meetings, what are you gonna do about drainage? And it's like, it's part of this job that's the science, not the art. Art's design and cool and entryways and amenities. But then you go to engineering, they're like, here's what you have to do. That one's in that category.
Yeah.
So I didn't blow them up because I don't like trees, but I blew them up because I had to for drainage.
Yeah, okay.
Just so you come clear.
My only comment would be, love the amenities everybody mentioned, maybe a little more intentionality of the design. I feel like a half basketball court just kind of got like dropped in. It feels like you said, there's a lot of space right there. If you don't mind actually zooming down again for the sake of this.
Yeah.
I wonder if a full basketball court could fit where the two pickleball courts are shown, and then maybe you kind of flank it with one or two pickleball courts on both sides of it, but just a little more intentionality of the design would be appreciated. I mean, half a basketball court for what you said, I think it was 360 or 390 lots, whatever it was. So if possible to fit, it'd be appreciated.
Okay, we'll look at that.
Any other commissioner comments,
And
questions?
just to make sure I missed, these are also not lit, correct?
Correct.
We ready for staff's recap?
Not yet.
Staff is still typing.
Staff is still recapping.
Alright.
Don't say anything else, Smith.
Okay, I think we're ready for the recap now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really, a little bit unclear if, the whole discussion about the duration section, is there a desire for that to be removed? Is there a consideration for that? So, I don't know, could we, those that. What was the question? The sunset clause, the duration.
No, I don't care.
Is there a desire for them?
I mean, I brought it up because I don't like that we do it, but it's kind of gotten to be a standard in the language that you just read, John, so if they don't have a problem with it, I'm not making an issue here.
For the record, I don't like it either.
Does the BZA do the same thing? I mean, shorter time frame.
Oh, yeah.
They usually
BZA is
have
much
a time
shorter.
frame. If I recall in Brownsburg, it's similar. It's like 2 years from the date in which we approve the variance. And if you didn't do anything within 2 years, you had to essentially come back.
Not so much in the, well, at least here, not so much in the fact that if they don't do something, it's just period, there's a X number of year
Yeah.
time limit that we'll sometimes put on uses, especially to reevaluate. I mean, if it's in like a transitional area of the community that, may ultimately become something different,
Yeah.
we don't necessarily wanna approve a use indefinitely.
Yep.
Yeah.
The context is a little different when you're putting a limit on a variance
Right.
versus potential devaluation of somebody's previously approved planning, so it's just different.
But to confirm, director in that ordinance is defined as your position, correct? So you have the autonomy to extend if and when that happens without them coming to a
As that's
body.
worded, that's right.
So I think it still allows the community development department to have a real look at what is happening in the corridor. Maybe things have changed between now and 2029, and we have to have the ability to fluctuate if so necessary.
I've been sitting on this body long enough to remember some of these old examples that didn't have them and came back and had to be made over, which is not the worst thing that could happen, but I would certainly defer to council if they feel that this is something that current council wants to continue, they can continue it, but I would think from our perspectives, it's really not land use, it's not something that we should try to legislate. I do agree that we need to make sure that annexation language is in our ordinances, cause that is pretty important. But sunset clause,
So if you choose to remove it, I think you'll have support from the planning commission, it sounds like. If you don't,
that's fine too. The other thing I have listed, add designated parking to the east side of the amenity area, as we discussed. And then consider adding a full basketball court to the amenity area.
Was that considered full basketball or?
Just more intentionality and use of some green space if possible,
Yeah.
just to further extend the offerings.
Cause that's, I mean, it was intentionally done to only have half, and I appreciate the concept, the sense of it maybe reorienting things, but when you start putting in a full basketball court, it starts to attract residents from farther outside of the intended service area.
So processing that, maybe it's either segmentation of multiple half courts. You know, maybe it's just, let's think additional hoops, right? How can we achieve such?
Yep, I got it.
I guess I have
That's not.
And on that topic real quick, sorry, something just pointed out to, or I just noticed something, that with the hoop facing towards, traffic, would that be, is there gonna be some sort of fencing there, or would it be more beneficial to flip it and have the hoop being faced
That goes
inward?
back to Paul's comment about science and art. We haven't gotten to the science
Okay.
of this yet.
It's a good point, though.
That's
We
not
don't wanna
good
miss a
science.
shot and go into traffic.
A lot of air balls going on the road.
Yeah.
Pickleball's
something
a
that
lot
stood
more
out to me.
confined, maybe we go pickle on the outside and basketball on the
Well,
inside.
if you're playing
hoops in the evening and the court's on the other side, you won't be able to see the rim.
Right.
Make him a true Hoosier, right? Don't miss it.
Oh, yeah.
Make your basket.
You have a tennis court, you never put it east-west.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch the movie Hoosiers?
I have, yeah.
Did I
Never
miss
missed a
anything in terms of changes or modifications to be considered?
You didn't, but I have a question, and maybe this is more historical, so this may not be for the petitioner, but is there a reason why we don't light places like this? And the reason I ask, I don't wanna be an apple cart upsetter, I like that ours is. And I think of daylight savings time, which is, I think, the dumbest law in the history of the world, and I think we should change it, and I have no support in the General Assembly, but we could. That there are times, especially.
Ordinance either.
Right, but it's, we don't light them, and I guess I'm just curious as to, is this, the city hasn't pushed whether we should or shouldn't light them.
We don't require it.
But we don't pressure people to not do it either, or do we say, we have no preference?
Yes, it's up to the
Let
property.
me rephrase the answer, okay. And so is there a reason why, because I think of daylight I know that the weather gets, as it does in Indiana and you can't play, but I mean, the way our time shifts and changes around here, it makes some of this stuff unusable at certain times of the year, I suppose. Because then it's dark, and maybe that's the way it is, maybe there are neighbors that don't want that. I mean, I guess for me, I don't particularly mind, but I'm a little less care about that, maybe some of my neighbors might, maybe Mr. Herkey doesn't wanna hear anybody at 9 o'clock at night in Village Farms, and that's perfectly fine. And I guess it's just an overall process question, maybe it's not for this venue. I'm just curious as to why we don't wanna make this more usable to a certain hour, just based on what it is, and again, we talk about Hoosiers and basketball and those kind of things in Indiana. So I don't know that I'm looking for an answer, but I just thought if there was a historical perspective that says, no, we don't do it because this happened, well, then I'll shut up. But,
It's a broader discussion to have ongoing, probably. If it's not something that's already codified, then we don't have an opinion on it.
Yeah.
And can't legislate that it be there.
Right.
If a business person makes the conscious decision that I think it'll benefit my development to have that, then they will have it. If they make a conscious decision that we've run the numbers and we know our likely clients, we don't think it's needed.
and I
it
guess
won't be there, and it's,
I guess you guys do this professionally and all the time, so do people not typically ask that question or care, generally?
No, it generally becomes a nuisance.
Okay.
I mean,
We get more complaints about when it is lighted than
Than when
we
it's
do
not.
It's not.
and then you got the expense and the maintenance and
Yeah.
kids who break the lights and shoot BB guns at it. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it just doesn't ever seem to be worth having.
Yeah, okay.
We've got a neighborhood where the basketball courts are a big problem.
Sure.
Full court basketball courts and,
What are you saying?
Police, we have to bring police out.
we had police in, we had to have police watch the place all the time, because people would show up from other neighborhoods finding out there were basketball courts, and we had, organized, chaos. We had games and tag-ins and, waiting on the sidelines, people who were like, who are these people? And then they jump the fence and get in the pool, and, it became hey, we have to call the police. More than a few times, we actually put cameras out,
Guess
it
we have
became
a
a
loser right
major
there, so
problem,
That kinda helps.
yeah.
Well, and I can speak on that topic because we've had that issue, in our pool amenity, with people from Casey Acres coming over and using it. So I can definitely see that point of if there is a full court basketball court here, people from neighboring communities finding that out and wanting to come use it.
This one isn't so bad because it's internal and it's a pretty good sized neighborhood. One of the neighborhoods I'm talking about has got mixed use, it has apartments, it has housing, it has, so there's a whole variety of different folks there. And some of the things that you think sound really nice, and one we've done because we've been asked by a couple of council members, put some fishing piers in, put something to utilize the lakes. Lots of kids like to see if they can do backflips off those, right? I mean, Fishers 20 years ago wanted us to fence all our lakes. Wow. Because some kid drowned. I mean, it's a bad thing, it happened, but what are you gonna do? Now you're gonna fence all your detention ponds? That was a proposed ordinance that the whole community came out about, because they said, well, the kids will still jump the fence, now we can't get to them. They're in trouble.
Right.
We're only making it worse, but
truck's
some of
gonna
these
ram
things,
through
that you go, this would be really nice, and it
Yeah.
would be if we were Mayberry, leave it to Beaver, but. So that's just.
Thank you for entertaining my question.
Yeah.
Is there
amenities
more
and parking.
to go through on your recap,
Yeah,
Kevin?
amenity.
You don't have to write down my question on your recap. Strike it from the record.
Like it's always recorded.
I'm gonna be the white guy now. That's gonna be my.
We'll defer you on all light questions.
Memorialized for history.
I think that's everything.
All right. Anybody else, quick final thoughts? Commissioner, feel like you've got everything you need to go forth and
I
come
appreciate
back for
everybody's time. I
recommendations?
think it's a great forum to get things worked out. We like the idea to sit down and talk through things and have a little bit more time than standing at the podium trying to play point counterpoint. So I appreciate the opportunity to do these kind of things. I think it's helpful.
More casual and fosters dialogue.
And my big takeaway is all future amenities need basketball courts.
Yeah.
Lit basketball.
With lights.
It's Indiana. It's Indiana.
LED scoreboard. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
10 days in advance of the meeting, is that where we're at with everything?
What's that? Submittal. So this will be back on April 1st, yeah. Preferably by the end of this week, if you could give us.
22nd.
Yeah, 22nd or 25th.
Good.
That'll work for us.
With
Both petitions.
25th of Monday, so I heard the 25th.
That's,
If you need the weekend, that's fine.
You don't understand, there's more than enough going on.
yeah.
The end of the day on a Friday is just like first thing.
That's
Monday.
right.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything with it on the weekend.
Thank you, folks.
Good, thank you.
We have a growing list of items continued. There's probably nothing we need to get updated on that. Taking us down to reports and comments. Are there any general comments or things to report on from plan commission members for each other? That is next. Seems like there aren't any plan commission member comments, so let's move on to the council liaison.
Okay. Good evening. Our council meeting last week, to start off, we had a proclamation declaring March Disability Awareness Month. And then under old business, we had resolution 24-105, which was the fiscal plan for ordinance 24-10, annexation for remaining about 3 parcels around Grand Park that just hadn't been annexed in by the city yet. And then also the floodplain portion of the amendment for the UDO was approved as well. Under new business, this body will be seeing an amendment for Action Farms, also now known as Woodland Neighborhood. An amendment for that addressing garage doors and front porch adjustments. Then we had an ordinance for 24-19 authorizing purchase of a blanket bond and insurance policy per Indiana Code 54118 or 59, I can't read my hand. And ordinance 24-20, transfer of appropriations for new departments, and resolution 24-108, additional appropriation for the library in terms of 1.6 million, which was their money anyway, but the state wants to have an actual fiscal body to be able to approve it. Then a resolution 24-110, council engaging legal counsel for the to be determined Graham Park agreement, just so that way we have some representation as well, and then we had another executive session. So that's it from council.
Thank you. Board of Zoning Appeals.
Approved 4 different development standard variances that'll promote homeowner improvement. Approved development standard variance that'll allow for a business to expand its downtown presence. Approved a development standard variance to allow local retail to activate merchandise in the front of the store, outside of the store, that is. Approved a development variance that will make way for the new fire station near 191st and Tomlinson, and then continued a development variance that would compress a 4.41 acre single home lot into 3 separate home subdivisions. We continued that, if I didn't say that already, but.
Excellent. The scheduled plat committee meeting was canceled, so nothing to report on from plat committee, but there is a meeting this coming Monday. Community Development Department, what are your words of wisdom tonight?
Not a lot, we will have a meeting on April 1st. I'm not kidding.
I was waiting for that. No fooling.
So, yeah, just, and this will be back at City Hall, for public hearing. And if you haven't met Mandy yet, this is Mandy Trott. She's, the one that's gonna be sending you all kinds of emails and reminders and
Already has.
quorum requests. Yeah, Artie's been doing that, so, if you haven't met Mandy, here's Mandy. And did you have?
Hi, Mandy.
I think we need to see you before you leave.
I need everybody.
Oh, and she needs everybody,
Oh,
so,
man.
so when we adjourn.
What did we
she's
do
got-
wrong?
This is the first time here.
It's actually
Yeah.
for Stites, so make sure you don't.
How was Jesse's thing?
It was a nice service.
Yeah, man, that
Nice
sucked.
service, yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It's crazy.
It
was a good dude.
One of our, he used to work here almost 10 years ago. Suddenly,
Like,
Was he working for Hanky still, or was he on his own right now?
no, he was actually with William Trace with.
Oh, he was?
With Travis May.
Yeah.
couple month diagnosis, wasn't it?
Not even, like 2 days.
Yeah, it was the same week.
It's crazy.
So, but yeah, Jesse was with us in the mid-20 teens for about 4 years, so.
Where's Jennifer Miller been? Cause I saw she just got the job in Sheridan.
She's been doing some nonprofit work. In Hamilton, well, Han, and then I think she was, I can't remember the name of the other place she went after that. But yeah,
Yeah.
Shepherd's.
Oh, yeah.
Shepherd
something.
Centers.
Yeah, I don't know, something, but she's been in kind of the
Yeah.
quasi development world, that's all, on the nonprofit side, so.
Moved on to
think
the
that's it
three-quarters
from us.
court.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's very nice.
What did we, Mandy, what did you need?
We are finished.
We can adjourn first and then take care of whatever that business is.
So moved.
So we are at that point.
Second.
Thank you, Chris Woodard, for motioning to adjourn. And
Second.
Second.
I said second.
By the fake Mark Keen.
Yeah.
Credit for the second.
Yeah, I see that.
Ryan.
Ryan did, yeah.
Got in there.
All right, we're all here. Everybody in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Actually, no.
Just as
Get out of here.
we are adjourned.
Right,
Not
now
really.
listen,
Because Mandy.
Mandy has something to tell us.
It's about.
Yes, I don't do stuff to get stipends.